Good evening and thanks for tuning in. Hope you had a great weekend. Top business stories today. With the latest stimulus package just around the corner, we spoke with Daniel Lakaya about how they could be stifling American innovation. Senate Republicans say they'll reveal what their new plan today. It's likely to include a cut in extra unemployment benefits and another round of stimulus checks. The Big Four tech CEOs are scheduled to testify on Wednesday before the House Antitrust Committee. It's the most high-profile antitrust case hearing since the 1990s when the feds looked into Microsoft. And retail chain Albertsons released its earnings report and saw a surge in same-store sales as more people are shopping for groceries online. The dollar tumbled to an almost two-year low against the euro on Monday. Concerns about growing CCP virus cases and the Federal Reserve's interest rates meeting led to the dollar index falling 0.72% to 93.68. The Fed is expected to confirm it will keep rates near zero for years to come after its two-day meeting ends on Wednesday. The Dow rose almost 115 points, up 0.43%. The S&P 500 rose nearly 24 points. That's up 7.4%, and the Nasdaq rose 173 points, up 1.67%. I read an article in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend titled "The Rescues Ruining Capitalism." It's a very detailed analysis on the long-term impact of this year's massive bailouts. What really stood out to me was the effect on American innovation and entrepreneurship. I asked Daniel Lakaya about it earlier. Daniel, thanks so much for coming on as always. I hope you had a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Daniel, I read a very interesting article over the weekend in the Wall Street Journal. It was titled How the Rescues Are Ruining Capitalism, about these kind of stimulus packages, corporate rescues, things like this. One part of it that really stood out to me was the author talked about how the buying of corporate debt en masse can actually affect the startups, innovation, entrepreneurships in a society. I thought it was a very interesting concept. Do you agree with that analysis, and how does that actually work?
I actually agree. If we think about it, like it or not, an integral part of progress is when you have an environment in which there is creative destruction. Creative destruction has always helped progress by allowing the innovative companies, the most efficient companies, to thrive in an environment in which other companies that are not doing so well, that are heavily indebted, that are not so efficient, actually move out of the system. And there's a process by which the mistakes of some become the virtuous circle that we all know as growth, productivity improvements, and all the positive elements that entails. However, in an environment in which we have collectively decided that governments and central banks have to bail out almost anything, what ends up happening is that the ones that get access to the cheap money, to the massive stimulus packages, are actually the ones that don't need it. If you look, for example, at the Federal Reserve, it is purchasing bonds of companies that were actually in zombification or in stagnation, not growing in the past years, way before the COVID-19 crisis. And it's also purchasing bonds from very large companies that didn't have any problem in accessing the bond markets in the past. While at the same time, what is happening is that the startups, the small businesses, all of those that actually were not indebted or did not have access to credit are the ones that are falling dramatically. So the environment of the bailout of everything, as I call it, ends up being an environment that also reduces the possibility of the economy of reaching higher levels of growth. And it is no surprise that in the last 3 decades, out of every crisis, we get out with more debt, less productivity growth, and lower levels of economic output.
And I believe it's actually very hard to unwind these type of actions even after the fact. Is that correct?
That is a key factor as well of the negative collateral damages of massive stimulus packages, is that once you've started, it is very difficult to unwind. As we are seeing right now, just a small reduction in the pace of stimulus, in the increase in the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve in 2018 created a massive disruption in markets. But as liquidity injections increase and interest rates go down further, what we end up seeing is this massive transfer of wealth from the efficient, from savers, to the inefficient, and to the most indebted. So there's almost a perverse incentives to do things incorrectly, because if you think about it, the ones that get bailed out in crises like these are the ones that had the highest levels of debt, the worst types of businesses, and what it ends up doing is that it zombifies the economy. You keep the zombies alive for a prolonged period of time, and you don't reach higher levels of productivity. New businesses don't thrive, startups collapse, and and we lose the opportunity of investing in innovation and improving in efficiency.
Looks like we'll be facing the impacts of this pandemic for a while to come. Daniel, thanks so much for the update and the explanation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Senate Republicans are expected to reveal their new plan today. It's likely to include a cut in extra unemployment benefits from $600 to $200 per week. Well, that's at least until states can adopt a system that caps aid at 70% of a worker's income before they were laid off. The White House says businesses reopening have had trouble hiring workers because some are getting paid more through collecting unemployment insurance. Another point that seems almost sure is another $1,200 payout to Americans. The administration is also looking to extend the moratorium on evictions. Senate Republicans still have to ensure their plan satisfies House Democrats, though, who already passed a $3 trillion plan. Republicans said, though, that's too expensive. They expect a final agreement on an aid package sometime in August. New orders for key U.S.-made capital goods increased by the most in nearly 2 years. Capital goods are products that are used to make finished consumer goods and services. The Commerce Department reported the improvement on Monday. It was driven by pent-up demand from businesses reopening, but a resurgence in virus cases in some regions is threatening recovery, forcing some states to close businesses again or freeze reopenings. Orders for core capital goods are still about 3% lower than their pre-pandemic level. Government is expected to release a snapshot of its second quarter GDP later this week. And the four big tech CEOs of Facebook, Amazon, Google, and Apple are scheduled to testify before Congress on Wednesday as part of a year-long antitrust investigation into the tech giant's market dominance. Lawmakers want to find out if existing anti-competition laws are still enough, or if new laws and more funding are needed for enforcement. The hearing will also focus on censorship, consumer privacy, misinformation, and even working with the Chinese Communist Party. It's the highest profile antitrust hearing since the feds went after Microsoft in the 1990s. State Attorneys General, the Department of Justice, and the Federal Trade Commission are also looking into the tech companies. Each company is scheduled to release their quarterly results the day after the meeting. And Australia's consumer regulator launched their own court action against Google today. The regulator alleges the tech giant misled users about their use of personal data.
Google is now facing another litigation lawsuit. It's the latest that Google faces around the globe in cases all relating to the alleged misuse of personal data. An Australian regulator alleges that Google failed to obtain explicit consent for the use of users' personal data. It started in 2016 when Google combined the personal information of its account holders with browsing activities of non-Google websites that use Google technology. It enabled Google to target advertising to websites at an unfair advantage. Google said in a statement that it disagrees with the allegations and intends to defend its position. It said Google users had been notified of the changes and consent sought. Google has recently been working closely with the Australian watchdog on similar relating matters. The government there is intending to introduce a solution to make global digital platforms pay for content taken from news media. This means legacy media could receive some income when their content is shared on social media. Other data privacy cases against Google are ongoing in the US, Canada, and France. And in the UK, regulators are calling for action to be taken to introduce new laws to foster competition. Dominant players Google and Facebook being the main target.
Google says that it'll allow employees to work from home until next June. It's the first major US company to formalize an extended work from home schedule. The move will affect nearly all their 200,000 employees. And the Trump administration has relaxed controls on exports of military drones. It's a move that could help U.S. national security and boost the U.S. economy.
U.S. defense contractors can now sell more drones to more countries after President Trump signed a new policy. According to the State Department, this will boost the American industry and help U.S. partners and allies meet urgent security and commercial needs. The action bypasses the Missile Technology Control Regime, or MTCR, which is an informal agreement between 35 countries to prevent the spreading of nuclear arms. Trump's plan reclassifies drones that fly below a certain speed, allowing them to be sold to ally nations while avoiding the MTCR's harsh regulations. The White House says the MCTR handicaps U.S. partners and allies while giving an unfair advantage to countries outside of the agreement. Assistant Secretary Clark Cooper of the State Department's Bureau of Political Military Affairs says stopping the spread of weapons technology to nations like North Korea and Iran remains a top priority for the administration. Foreign countries and allies want to buy U.S. drones for counterterrorism and security missions. A Republican senator says the international limits on drone exports have allowed the Chinese military to advance its defense technology. He says it's also led China to build relationships with traditional U.S. partners. Under Trump's presidency, the U.S. has withdrawn from other international treaties, including the Iran nuclear deal and the Paris Climate Accord.
U.S. grocer Albertsons reported a 26% rise in same-store sales in its first quarter as a publicly listed company. Happy shareholders. Albertsons is benefiting from pandemic-driven grocery home deliveries. Online sales more than tripled during the quarter, and the company is one of the largest food and drug retailers in the country. It operates 20 brands, including Albertsons, Safeway, and Vons. While Albertsons generated nearly $600 million in profit in the quarter, grocers across the U.S. have equally experienced higher sales since the pandemic began. And if you're looking for a car, 2 months after filing for bankruptcy, Hertz has struck a deal with lenders. It has to sell 182,000 cars by the end of the year. By getting rid of almost half of its vehicles, the deal will help pay off $650 million in lease-related debts and still leave Hertz with enough cars to keep the business running post-pandemic. There was a bit of luck involved. The used car market saw a boost in recent months, allowing the agreement to be made. The sell-off will cut Hertz's debt from $11 billion to $5 billion. And up next, Southwest has a welcome announcement for its staff. We have analysis after the break.
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. The Epoch Times is independent. We're not controlled by any special interests, and we never will be. The Epoch Times is a non-partisan media. That means we don't stand for any political party. This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would ensnare this country in ignorance, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
In China, something can be illegal, but still in common practice. For example, bribery, or intellectual property theft, or Uber.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people and counting. I'm a little freaked out that many people have seen my face.
Hey, have you heard of China Uncensored? It's starring me.
It's more and more obvious that China is having a major influence on the U.S.
Hey, have you heard of China Uncensored? 中国揭秘.
In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the only show on TV or the internet. It will be the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
Have you heard of China Uncensored?
Yeah, I have.
You actually have? He's heard of China
Hello.
Uncensored.
I love China Uncensored.
Despite record losses this year in the billions of dollars, Southwest Airlines says it's not planning to furlough or lay off any workers, for now at least. I got the details from Tom Ojimic earlier. Tom, great to see you again after the weekend. Hope it was a good one for you. We see the Southwest CEO says they're not planning to furlough or lay anybody off until the end of the year, hopefully at least. Does it look like things are looking up for the airline?
Well, the messages are mixed. On the one hand, it's the message is reassuring. No furloughs, no layoffs, no pay cuts, no cuts to benefits until at least the end of the year. But there's a caveat in CEO Gary Kelly's letter to employees, which he sent out on Sunday, namely that he can't guarantee that those types of moves, aren't on the horizon. Owing to the devastating nature of the pandemic. So the risk is there, and he noted that is the case. Another thing that he said is that without the massive and unprecedented amount of stimulus and bailout funds that have been provided to the airline industry, there's no way that Southwest will be able to survive. And so that message is there, loud and clear. So it also comes at a time when congressional lawmakers are putting the final touches on the Phase 4 relief bill. And there's certainly an element of the airline industry sending a signal to lawmakers. We potentially are going to ask for more money to keep us going.
And are they confident that people might start flying again, or do they have any idea?
Well, that's hard to say. It's clear that on the one hand, Southwest had a great 2019, and they're sitting on a massive pile of cash from last year's profits, around $15 billion. And with 20 million losses per day, that gives them about 2 years of runway, just on the basis of the savings that the cash surplus that they've managed to accumulate. Plus they've, they were helped by 3.2 billion in stimulus money from the CARES relief bill. But they would need to double their passenger traffic to break even, and more or less triple to make a profit. And according to a recent Moody's report on the airline industry, that it doesn't look optimistic that the airline industry will be able to bounce back until late 2023. So that's the sort of optimistic scenario. And there are caveats in that report that without a strong rebound in passenger sentiment and confidence, so basically unless people start flying again, then it could even be longer for the airline industry to recover.
Late 2023, wow. Seems like an eternity. We're only 6 months into 2020. Tom, thanks so much for the update.
Thanks, Paul.
An Indian court has asked Chinese tech giant Alibaba and its co-founder Jack Ma to present evidence about its news operations. A former employee claimed he was unfairly dismissed for refusing to censor content carried by Alibaba apps.
An Indian court has summoned Alibaba and its founder Jack Ma in a case in which a former employee in India says he was wrongfully fired after objecting to what he saw as censorship and fake news on company apps. The case comes just weeks after India cited security concerns in banning Alibaba's UC News, UC Browser and 57 other Chinese apps after a clash between the two countries' forces on their shared border. Following the ban, which was criticised by China, India sought written answers from all affected companies, including whether they censored content or acted for any foreign government. In court filings dated July 20 and previously not reported, the former employee of Alibaba's UC Web, Pushpendra Singh Palmer, alleges the company used to censor content seen as unfavourable to China, and its apps UC Browser and UC News showcased false news to, quote, cause social and political turmoil. A civil judge from a district court in Gurugram has issued summons for Alibaba, Jack Ma and about a dozen individuals or company units, asking them to appear in court or through a lawyer on July 29. According to the summons, the judge has also sought written responses from the company and its executives within 30 days. The court case is the latest hurdle for Alibaba in India after the Indian government's app ban, following which UC Web has started laying off some staff in the country. Alibaba representatives did not respond to requests for comment from the company or on behalf of Jack Ma.
And up next, if you're tired of your boring blue face mask, stay tuned. We have some fashion inspiration from New York City after the break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
As we've been reporting, New Yorkers are moving out of the city and into less populated areas. Since people are working from home for the foreseeable future, their rental priorities have changed. Now rent prices in New York City are at record lows.
New York City's rent prices are at record lows because of the virus. Nancy Wu, an economist with StreetEasy, says New Yorkers are staying and working from home longer than they have ever in the past.
A lot of renters have been moving out of the city temporarily or permanently. New hires are not moving into the city because they're working from home, and more apartments are coming onto the market as leases expire.
That means increased supply and weaker demand and record price cuts. Plus, renters' tastes have changed. Pet-friendly apartment buildings used to be high on the popularity list. Now, backyards and washers and dryers in the apartment are in high demand.
So now a lot of renters are prioritizing more space, greater affordability over a shorter commute time to their offices because they're working from home. So we're seeing less preferences for Manhattan apartments, more for out-of-borough apartments.
A government report shows that U.S. home sales increased by the most on record in June, boosted by historically low mortgage rates. Another report said that sales of new single-family homes rose to a near 13-year high in June. The housing market is outperforming the broader economy because of record low interest rates and the migration from cities to less populated areas. But Wu says sellers are taking houses off the market to wait out the pandemic. She says that will lead to price drops in the future.
If you're yearning for a departure from the blasé surgical face mask, make it couture. Take some inspiration from New York City, where influencers, designers, and fashionistas are slowing the spread of the virus with flair.
A walk through Manhattan and you'll see retailers have embraced this pseudo-alternate reality moment by accessorizing their mannequins with unique face coverings for their stylish customers. Not long after the new coronavirus masked up New Yorkers, Melissa Ketch decided she wanted something with more personality than a blue mask.
So I wanted something fashionable to begin with, and I wanted something that I can make a statement. If I go somewhere, everybody can look at the mask and look at it.
And by embracing mask wearing fashionably, she says she's doing her part. Retail analyst Mary Epner says there may be some apprehension among customers to wear something too glamorous on the heels of an economic downturn.
There is a surge in the purchasing of designer masks. Customers love them because it's self-expression. So on the one hand, they love to buy them, but they're hundreds of dollars. And then some consumers who can actually afford them don't feel comfortable doing it based on the state of the economy. They feel it might be a little bit showy and ostentatious.
Some of those high-end masks could come from fashion designer Michael No, where $500 will get you a red Swarovski crystal-encrusted mask aptly named Revival. The more economical yet fashion-conscious consumers may want to turn their attention to Tory Burch, who offers designer masks at an accessible price point. At $35 with $10 going to charity, you can take coronavirus, but make it fashionable for a good cause.
That's the latest business updates for today. Thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow.